Hello again, everyone. This is Steve Callis, speaking of sports. I'm here with Johnny Callis, and we're here to talk about the NBA playoffs. First thing I just want to talk about very briefly is this interesting 8-9 play-in that they decided to rig up to try and be fair, I guess. I thought it was fine the way they did it. There's some rumors they might do that next year. I hope they don't. But my problem was Phoenix went 8-0 in the bubble, and they wound up with the exact same record as the Memphis Grizzlies. Memphis got in on some kind of tiebreaker or something. Portland played one more game. If they beat the Nets, they're guaranteed to be in the playoffs. If they lose to the Nets, they're guaranteed not to be in the playoffs. So they did beat the Nets in a close game. But I really thought that Phoenix and Memphis should have played a one-game playoff the next day. They could have done it. Play a one-game playoff the next day, because I think it's bad to make even the play-in game on a tiebreaker. And also, frankly, I thought it was bad that Portland's season was decided on a one-game play, in essence, playoff with the Nets. Any thoughts on that before we go to the playoffs, Johnny?
No, I largely agree. The only thing I'd say, I think Phoenix was a little bit lucky to be included in this bubble to begin with. Obviously, they proved their worth, but they were very bad. In addition to a couple other teams in the bubble, I knew they had to figure out a way. I think it's probably best for the NBA that Portland ended up being in it. Memphis, actually, I'll give them credit. They gave Portland a run for their money in that game, which I don't think anybody was expecting, even though they'd have to win too. But no, I largely agree with you, and looking forward to seeing the Suns next year. They should be a team to watch.
Yeah. Okay, so the way we're going to do this now, we'll do the East first, and we'll do it kind of in the way, not the seedings 1 through 8, but the two ways they have like two 14 brackets. In essence, the Bucks and the Magic up top because they're the 1 seed, and they're going to play the winner of Pacers Heat. So I'll go with those first, and then you could jump in with your thoughts. Bucks and Magic, 1-8, very hard for an 8 to beat a 1 in the NBA. This isn't the NHL. I think they have the MVP in Giannis. I'll just give you his regular season. Well, actually, his stats against the Magic in 3 games this year: 26, 16 rebounds, and 8 assists. Problem for the Magic is Jonathan Isaac's out with a torn ACL. They might put Aaron Gordon on him. Vucevic can't guard him, although Vucevic, is a good big man. But, Giannis, I think he's the MVP. His weakness, I still think, is he shot 30% from three, so I don't know if they're going to try and back off on him like they always seem to try and back off on him. But, Chris Middleton, Bledsoe, Brooke Lopez, we both love George Hill. He seems to shoot unconscious from three. They don't have a second star, although Middleton is an all-star. I do give him credit for that, but they have an awful lot of good players, and Brooke Lopez can defend and make a threes, and he's a 7-footer, as you know. So I kind of like the Bucks over the Magic. Why don't you give me that, and then I'll go to Pacers Heat after you're done.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I really like the Bucks in a lot of ways, but I don't think this will be much of a series. The Magic do have some nice talent, but I'm just going to echo what you say, and we can move on.
Pacers, the 4 seed against the Heat, the 5 seed. This is almost becoming a T.J. Warren, Jimmy Butler personal battle. Now, as we talked about in the past, T.J. Warren could always light it up. So everybody went nuts when he scored 51. But, he had 30 and a half against Charlotte this year. He had 40 in a game last year. He's averaged 19 a game for the last 3 years. He's an NBA scorer, but he's just kind of been unconscious in the bubble. 31 points per game, 57.8% from the field in the bubble. And the reason I talk about in the bubble, Johnny, because you played enough ball, it's interesting. When you get into one of these, this is a different thing. This isn't I can shoot at Madison Square Garden, but I'm no good in Boston Garden. All these guys showed up never having played in this. And I think some guys are going to go up and some guys are going to go up. But T.J. Warren is one of the guys who can go up. Now, the Heat as a team shot 37.9% from three for the year. They were the second leading three-point percentage making team in the league. Utah was at 38%. And so I kind of like the Heat. If it's T.J. Warren against Jimmy Butler, I like Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler was the alpha dog on the 76ers last year, even though they had Simmons and Embiid. And I think he thought they couldn't win a championship, and I think that's why he left. But, they're much better than I thought they'd be. But, Goran Dragic, he's a really good point guard. Bam Adebayo has become a real player. And this Duncan Robinson, I just want to talk briefly about him. 14 a game, 45% from three, 6'8" guy. Didn't know if he would make it in the league. But I have to say this, about 6 years ago, I went up to my daughter, your sister Gabriella's Williams College. We went to a basketball game up there. I walked into the gym and I saw a 6'8" guy make 9 threes in a row. And I turned to Gabriella and I said, who is this guy? And what's he doing here? And the story went from there. He lost the national championship in the finals at Williams, transferred to Michigan where he played really, really well, got drafted by the Heat. We talked about there could be a spot for him because if you're 6'8" and can make threes, you could play in the NBA today. But not only has he played, he's played incredibly well. So I really think they have a nice team. The Pacers, they got Brogdon. Oladipo hasn't been Oladipo, but maybe the Pacers are the higher seed. But I think I like the Heat in this series, if you can call that a minor upset. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I like the Heat probably going all 7 games. Really love Jimmy Butler. I'd say 2 guys in this league who, even though neither of them are from New York, I think are real New York basketball players are Jimmy Butler and Russell Westbrook. I would love to have Jimmy Butler in a Knick uniform. I think he just plays hard defense. I think, he's not the best scorer in the game or anything like that. Obviously, he's an excellent scorer. He's an excellent player, but just a real New York mentality on the court, which I really appreciate. And I don't think he'll let it get the best of him either. I don't think it necessarily brings his game down. So I like the Heat. I think Butler will have his way a little bit with Warren if it comes down to it. Though Warren is an excellent shooter, and that's a good point. I'm going to make that point a little bit. I'll push back against it, but when we talk about the Lakers later, in terms of being in the bubble and how that can impact. But I do like the Heat. Jimmy Butler, I think you're totally right about Robinson, great three-point shooter. And Oladipo's just not quite there yet, and he's even admitted it. So Pacers, another team that could be really good in the next couple of years, but I'll go with the Heat in this series as well in a minor upset.
Okay, we'll go to the other side of the East bracket now, the Raptors and the Nets, and then, of course, the Celtics and the 76ers. I'm more and more impressed by the Raptors. The more I look at their roster, the more I see them play. Look, the Nets for next year, this is fantastic that they made the playoffs, but they have like nobody. They were picking guys up off the street, and then they were cutting them because they got sick or they got COVID or whatever, but no KD, no Kyrie, no Spencer Dinwiddie, no DeAndre Jordan, and boy, that's a good 4 next year. But Karis LeVert has been the man. They got Joe Harris who can make those threes. I just don't think they're going to have enough firepower, but I think it's awesome that they're in the playoffs because next year in the playoffs, when they're a star team filled with stars, these guys are all going to be helpful and they will all have had playoff experience. But the Raptors, and the reason I'm leaning more towards the Raptors, maybe even in the East, we'll talk about it soon. The Raptors are full of champions. I mean, Siakam has become a star, and frankly, it was his coming out party, I thought, last year. But, Kyle Lowry, big-time point guard, made some big plays last year. I understand they lost my favorite player in the NBA now, Kawhi Leonard, and I was kind of holding it against them all year. But again, after watching them, Nick Nurse, champion coach, has coached really well this year. They are the number 2 seed, but, they got a guy like Fred VanVleet. I know you love VanVleet. They just got a bunch of guys, Serge Ibaka, another champion, even this OG Anunoby, who's a champion. So they go deep on the championship side. I think they're going to be too much for the Nets, but I'm more and more impressed by them as, again, I watched them play in the bubble. I looked at their roster. Don't dismiss championship pedigree, even though they lost by far, in my opinion, their best player. And that's why I kind of discounted them all year, but I got to give them credit. They played well. They're the number 2 seed. So I like the Raptors over the Nets. That's nothing spectacular, but give me your analysis.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Raptors have even a good chance to sweep the Nets. I will say the Nets, a good time to be a Brooklyn Nets fan. And I think you have to be really happy with not only obviously what's coming next year, but the fact that, 4 of their 5 best players have been injured for either the whole season or through this bubble process. I thought they were everyone was talking about the Blazers and Suns, rightfully so, but I thought they were the unsung heroes of the East. I don't think anybody gave them a chance to win a couple games, never mind really compete at a high level, which they did against Portland. And that last game, even though Portland won, they were playing for their lives. Nets were playing for literally nothing.
Correct.
Nets won that game. So LeVert is great, but absolutely the Raptors, Too much championship experience. Also, too many guys who can score. They have, I think it might be 4 or 5 guys who average 15, at least 15 a game, which is pretty remarkable. I think Serge Ibaka, who we can talk about later, is a very underrated player. Really excellent, especially in the finals last year. So I like the Raptors as well.
So let's go Celtics 76ers now. I was prepared to pick the 76ers if they were healthy and had Ben Simmons, but they don't. Everybody now is talking about, oh, are they better without Ben Simmons? Because you can show me these statistics. I don't believe it for a second, but you're going to find out right now in a big time series how the 76ers play without Ben Simmons. I think the problem is more defensive than offensive, although Simmons scores, as you know, he still won't shoot outside of 10 feet. But I think, for example, the key to the series to me now is who's going to guard Jason Tatum. Yeah. And Ben Simmons can do that. Ben Simmons can go out and get these wings. He's an excellent defender. He guards big guys, little guys. He's athletic. He can defend. And I think, frankly, that's going to be the difference in the series. On the Celtics side, you know, they have all these really good guys. I think Marcus Smart should have been a defensive player of the year candidate. I know guards never win that, but he's one of the best defenders in the league. But I think, again, the problem we're going to find out, and it's really on what the Celtics do. Are they going to double Embiid? If they don't double Embiid, he'll get 35 and 15 a game. If they do double Embiid, do they have the guys? My complaint about the 76ers all year is they missed the alpha dog, Jimmy Butler. They didn't replace J.J. Redick. They got guys who can make threes, but there's no knockdown three-point shooter like J.J. Redick was. And I think those 2 losses really haven't been replaced. So when you take Simmons out of the mix, it's up to the Celtics. What do they want to do? Is it the old let the superstar get 35? Or are they going to double him? And if they decide to double him, and they might, to see if the 76ers can make threes. They got some guys who can make threes, but, you know, Tobias Harris, I don't think he's a max player, but he's a good player. If Embiid takes a 3, you say, thanks very much for taking a 3, Joel. So I think they're going to have some trouble. I thought this was going to be a very, very good series and probably would have picked the 76ers, but the Celtics have a lot of weapons, you know, Jaylen Brown. I mean, they just got guy after guy after guy. And I think the bigger problem is going to be defensively for the 76ers, because even if you can somehow Thibault or somebody can somehow check Tatum, which I'm not too sure about, everybody's got to move up one instead of having Simmons, who really played Tatum well during the year. And that's just not going to happen. He's going to miss the whole series. So I'm going to go with the Celtics over the 76ers. I know we're pretty much going with all the favorites except the Heat, but that's what I got. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, we might be going with the same teams for the first couple rounds, and then we'll have a little bit of a disagreement. But I really like the Celtics in this series. If Simmons was playing, I still might like them, though obviously I think it'd be a lot closer. I think the Celtics kind of, too much to call them a big 4, but just 4 excellent players with Walker, Brown, Tatum, obviously, as the guy who can really make a shot. And then I'd talk about another guy I'd love to see in a Knicks uniform, Marcus Smart. So I really like that. Jaylen Brown's come a long way. He's really turned himself into an excellent NBA player. And I think in combination with Tatum, I'm looking forward to what I think will be an exciting Raptors-Celtics series in the conference semifinals.
Well, I'm going to go right to the finals because I think the Raptors are going to beat the Celtics. I think, of course, the Bucks will make it. But in the Eastern Conference Finals, I'm going to pick the Raptors because of their experience over the Bucks. Originally, I kind of like the Bucks. They have the best record. I thought they'd come out of the East. But again, the more championship coach, championship experience, 5 or 6 really good players who are champions. Again, everybody does have to step up after Kawhi Leonard left, but I think they've kind of done that certainly during the regular season. I don't think they're going to be flustered in the playoffs. I think they might try and do that 4 across or whatever it is they do with Giannis to make him take some threes. 30% in my mind isn't going to get it if he's going to settle for threes. It's kind of like Embiid settling for threes. You thank them if they take threes. But that's my sense of the Eastern Conference Finals. How about you?
Yeah, so I actually, just quickly, I like the Raptors over the Celtics, but I think it's going to go 7 games. I think that's going to be an excellent series. I'm going to stick with I said before, I think the Raptors are kind of the hot pick now. They've been playing very good, very well, excellent defensively too. but I'm going to stick with the Bucks. I just wonder for the Raptors, they relied on Kawhi a lot in the fourth quarter, not necessarily just to take the big shot. I think the Raptors have a lot of guys who can make a big shot. Van Vliet comes to the top of the list. Siakam's come a long way. But who's going to be the guy who can continuously make the big shot in the fourth quarter? So I really like that guy being Giannis. I'll also stick with a couple of veterans they have. Korver's not playing important minutes down the stretch, but I think he'll make some threes. George Hill, I think, was the best three-point shooter in the league this year. Chris Middleton, one of the best mid-range games in all of basketball. I think he's a 50, 40, 90 guy or whatever. I think that's what he is. Also, he might be the best three-point shooter on the court, except for maybe a guy like George Hill, though obviously Hill doesn't shoot as many threes as Middleton does. So I'm going to go with the Bucks. I think if they do that 4 across, they'll make some important outside shots that they didn't make last year, and I think they'll edge out the Raptors in a really excellent series.
Okay, we're going to move to the West now. I'm going to give you the lead, Johnny, but first I'll announce the top of the bracket is Lakers and Blazers, of course, 1v8, and then an interesting 4-5 matchup, Rockets OKC. So why don't you take Lakers Blazers, and I'll follow your lead.
Lakers Blazers is about as good of a 1-8 matchup I think any of us could have hoped for with what not just the Blazers, but obviously Lillard was doing. McCollum, I think, is hurt, but he was awesome in the last play-in game. Obviously having Nurkic back. Carmelo, man, a lot of people counted him out, but hey, he makes some shots.
He finally made a big one the other day after missing a bunch to win the game.
That's true. Yeah, but he's still a shot maker, even though he's not the number one option. He's still a shot maker, I think. But I'm going to go with the Lakers. I need to go with the Lakers. I picked them before to win it all, and I'm sticking with them. I think it's going to go 6, though. I think the Blazers match up well against them. But I think in a weird way, the Blazers matchup for the Lakers is going to benefit them in the long run because I think the Blazers are really poor defensively. They're really bad defensively. And I think actually it could be a way for the Lakers to get back into some rhythm, scoring the ball, obviously with LeBron and Anthony Davis and having some of these guys on the perimeter start making more threes. So I'm going to go with the Lakers. Like I said, I think the Blazers, I wouldn't be surprised if they came out hot game 1 and even took game 1, but I think the Lakers will outlast them in 6, and I really like them.
Not much to add to that. I will say this, though. Our friend Joe Heinsman, who has an interesting bubble theory, and the bubble theory in the playoffs is you should look at these really good offensive teams to maybe have a big upset. And he pointed out, as you had, maybe Portland over the Lakers, obviously a huge long shot. But he also kind of likes Dallas over the Clippers, which I found interesting as well. Same reasons. They have tremendous offense, Doncic and Porzingis. But not much to add. I think the Lakers are a little top heavy, frankly, with LeBron and AD. LeBron is certainly the MVP candidate. I'd still go with Giannis because LeBron has a true superstar on his team, and Middleton's really good. I don't view him to be a true superstar. But I don't think there's really much in this series for me. I like the Lakers over the Blazers. They might get a game, or you think two. But I think LeBron, he's here to win the championship. That's all he has to do. That's his remaining goal in his NBA career. He has nothing else to prove. He's trying to get to 6. I don't think he will. I think he waved the white flag last year, as I told you, but maybe he knew they were getting Anthony Davis and they'd be, I like Kuzma a lot too. He can come in and play well for him. He's a really good player. But I think that's it for me, Lakers, Blazers. So tell me, give me your Rockets OKC. Where are you on that one?
I'm going to go with OKC, largely because Westbrook, it looks like he's going to miss at least one game, maybe more now at this point. And for that to already come out about Westbrook, who really plays through a lot, I think that's very concerning that he's missing any playoff time. So I like OKC. Chris Paul's been on a revenge tour. Everyone kind of forgot about him, thought he was sent out to OKC to basically retire. He's on a revenge tour. He has that team playing great. I think he's going to, the Rockets, usually Harden kind of controls the pace of the game on both sides, just the way they play offense. I think Paul's going to control the pace of the game. And I know they were within basically a Chris Paul injury of actually getting to the finals a few years back. I think it was Durant's first year in Golden State, and Houston has a strong case they should have made it to the finals that year, which is pretty remarkable to think about, but Paul got hurt. But I don't know if this Rocket style of basketball, they're going so small. I don't really know if that's going to work. You're so reliant on the 3, and I think going up against a guy like a Chris Paul-led team without Westbrook, for Houston. There's obviously a lot here with Westbrook playing OKC as well. I shouldn't just keep it focused on Paul. But I'm going to go with OKC in a minor upset. I don't really like either of these teams to beat the Lakers. I actually think the Blazers are a tougher matchup for the Lakers than either of these two teams are. So I'll go with OKC and then the Lakers to beat the Thunder in the following round.
Well, I'm going with you on that as well. Westbrook has a strained quad, and when you play as hard as he plays, you got to be 100%. So he's missing game one for sure, and now I hear probably game two. But I'm just afraid he comes back and does what Westbrook does, and he's got to be hurt to be out. And I don't think you can flip a switch and just become Russell Westbrook after you've missed a few games with a strained quad. Harden's going to get his, so he's going to go nuts now. But I don't know that really matters. Is the Mike D'Antoni style, has it really worked? It's good. It's exciting, but I don't think it's worked. And I think for OKC, Steven Adams, who of course has been at OKC forever, he's going to have a big series because of what you said. They go small. They like to go small. But I think while it'll be an interesting series to watch, more interesting if Westbrook plays, I think they're playing for the right, as you do, to lose to the Lakers. Let's go to the other side of the bracket now. Clippers and Mavericks, an interesting matchup. Clippers 2, Mavericks 7. And then the Nuggets and the Jazz. I should say we're taping this right after the first Nuggets-Jazz game where Donovan Mitchell went off for 57, but the Nuggets won. Kind of pulled away in overtime, actually. But I think we were both going to pick the Nuggets anyway. But why don't you give us Clippers, Mavs, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, another exciting kind of high seed, low seed matchup. I actually think the Blazers have, even though I'm picking the Lakers to go through it all, I think the Blazers have a better chance to take the Lakers to 6 or even 7 than the Mavericks do. Clippers really did well against Luka during the regular season. I mean, they really handled him well, and they have the two best perimeter defenders in all of basketball in Kawhi and Paul George. And Patrick Beverley is also an excellent defender. I don't think Luka is actually the X factor if you're looking for how the Mavericks. Porzingis has played out of his mind, I think, in the bubble. So look for him to have a little bit of success. But Luka, you're talking about how Giannis, his weakness is shooting threes. People don't think about this, but Luka was, I think, a 31% three-point shooter this year, which is much lower than most people think about. But you kind of see him hit those Harden-like fadeaway rainbow threes that look awesome, but he's only hitting 31%. So he is very well might be the best all-around offensive player in basketball outside of LeBron already. That pass between the legs, that lefty pass between the legs last week was one of the best passes I've seen in a long time. But I think the Clippers just have too much. Once again, the Clippers haven't really all played together in a while. That's been one of their kind of problems this whole year. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Mavericks gave them a run in the first couple of games, maybe take one out of the first two. But I think the Clippers are going to handle this one fairly easily.
Yeah, and Doncic only shot 27% against the Clippers in the 3 games and only 42% from the field with 15 turnovers in 3 games. So you're right. They do have the defenders to at least cause him some trouble. He'll still get his. But if those are the numbers, then they're going to be in real trouble. I have to mention, aside from the 3 you mentioned on the Clippers, who I think are virtually the keys to winning a championship. Of course, Lou Williams is finally back from Atlanta, back from quarantine. I guess he went to a strip club because the chicken wings were good, or at least that's what he said. And but now he's back. He's healthy. And I think he's a key factor. I mean, talk about instant offense. So offensive ratings, the advanced offensive ratings in the NBA, Dallas is 1, the Clippers are 2. But defensively, the Clippers are 5th and Dallas is like 18th or something. And I think that is the difference. But, it should be an interesting series. Is there a nice team to watch, the Mavericks? Maybe another year or two. But I always say these teams need a year to play together. But virtually none of them have. The Lakers have not. The Clippers have not. Maybe you can argue the Bucks haven't. If maybe the Bucks win the whole thing, that would be something I would point to after the fact. But I'm still going to go what I said, Raptors and Clippers. Give me your take on the Nuggets and Jazz, an interesting series. We're both going the same way. And if Donovan Mitchell gets 57, then they lose, so they're already down 1-0. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I like the Nuggets before this series, and obviously still do after they win Game One. To say Donovan Mitchell was unbelievable. Talk about your point though in superstars, and I think we need to start thinking about Donovan Mitchell as a superstar. He's working his way towards that, getting theirs, but still not necessarily winning the game. That was a story of the Jazz earlier this afternoon. 57, I believe he had 49 or maybe he had 51 in regulation. We'll say really, really bad. Obviously not his fault, but they're up by 4, get the ball back with a little over a minute left, 8-second violation because he was kind of lackadaisical bringing the ball up the court. I think they win that game if that doesn't happen. Once again, he made all those shots. But the Denver Nuggets have some players, man. I don't think they have enough to get by the Clippers in the second round, but this Jamal Murray was great this game. He was awesome down the stretch. Obviously, you have Joker, who's the best passing big man maybe ever already. Definitely will go down that after he retires or even in a few years. Michael Porter, I think he's a little young, but the Nuggets have a lot of good players. Obviously, Mike Malone, one of the best coaches in basketball. So I'll take the Nuggets in this. So 2 excellent teams who don't get enough credit and just need a little bit more star power, I think, to get to the next level, which is really being the conference finals or NBA finals.
Yeah, they got Rudy Gobert, always the Jazz, always, defensive player of the year candidate. But the Joker in 3 games against the Jazz, all of which before today, all of which the Nuggets has won. He was 29, 12 rebounds and 9 assists, 56.3% from the field. I like Michael Porter Jr. a lot, had a big rep in college, was injured, had some real injuries. But now in the bubble, 22 points per game, 55%, 42% from 3. If he can really, and Murray's already a star, if he can really play like that, then, we'll see what happens with the Clippers. But I'm with you on that, and I'll just go quickly. I'll go Lakers, Clippers. Again, I like the Clippers. I think this is the championship series. Maybe you'll agree, maybe not. But I like the Clippers to beat the Lakers. I just think they're deeper. And again, I understand LeBron and AD are probably 2 of the best 5 or 6 or 7 maybe players in the whole league. And while Paul George is good and Kawhi's in the top 5, I think he's top 1 or 2. Paul George isn't quite there, but I think they're deeper, and they've got the pest Patrick Beverly, who's gonna piss somebody off in the conference finals if it gets there. So I like the Clippers over the Lakers. How about you?
I love Kawhi, but I think he's number 3 or 4 in the NBA, behind Giannis, LeBron, and maybe a healthy Kevin Durant, though we can talk about that. I don't know. The Raptors are playing awful well without him. That's all I got to say.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point.
And then teams don't play well without LeBron, as we definitely know. But that's a conversation for another day, after he leaves them, I mean. Yeah, so look, the Clippers are much deeper. They have a lot of guys who can score. That fourth quarter lineup they have with, Lou Williams, Kawhi Leonard's one of the most clutch players in the league. Lou Williams might be their best fourth quarter scorer. I mean, he's unbelievable down the stretch. And to have Paul George and Harrell as a 3 and 4 scoring option, I mean, that's as a 1 and 2 scoring option, that's a competitive playoff team. So that's pretty scary. I'm going to stick with the Lakers. I think talk about championship experience, which the Clippers have through Kawhi. I think the Lakers have a lot of it with LeBron, and I think one of the X factors, though maybe you'll tell me some of these guys shoot better in the bubble, some guys shoot worse. Danny Green has really disappeared. He needs to really get it going. I think he's one of the X factors to make some big shots and make big plays on both sides of the ball. Very good defender, but obviously he's an excellent player. So I'm going to go with the Lakers. I think Anthony Davis is going to be a real problem for the Clippers. I don't see how they guard him. I think it's going to be a very competitive series. I also will make one last point on Lou Williams. While he is an unbelievable offensive player, I think the Lakers can exploit some pick and roll action with him on the defensive side of the ball. They're great defensively, but Lou Williams is their one weak spot when he's on the court. And the Lakers have had some success against him, and I think they really will with their lineup. So I'm going to go Lakers and Bucks, and we'll talk briefly about. I'll hand it over to you. But two teams that are really physical inside, and we think you need to be able to guard the 3, which you do. But these are 2 teams that are physical inside. I think will make for an exciting finals, in my opinion. But I'll turn it over to you first.
My finals is Clippers Raptors. I don't have much to say. I like the Clippers. The Raptors, I think their championship pedigree and their coach will get them to the finals, but I really think the finals are the Clippers-Lakers. If you tell me right now if I knew the Lakers were going to win, I would pick the Lakers over either team in the East. So I think the Clippers are the championship and the champions, and you have the final word with your Lakers-Bucks final.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that Lakers-Clippers matchup will be kind of effectively the championship. Yeah, I think actually, if it's Lakers-Bucks, I like it to go 7 because I think the Bucks actually match up. They don't give up any points in the paint, and the Lakers like to be physical down there. They have a lot of big guys, which you don't see that much anymore. But with Anthony Davis not being your biggest player on the court, you have LeBron, Anthony Davis, and JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard on the court. That's a lot of big guys for the NBA in 2020. But the Bucks are usually pretty good against them. Once again, I think guys like Danny Green, and you mentioned him earlier, Kyle Kuzma, he's the one guy who's actually, I think, shot a little bit better from 3 in the bubble. The Lakers had a hard time scoring, but I think Kuzma really could be the X factor, or they'll need him and Green to really step up. And I'm sorry, mention Rondo, I think, is supposed to be back for the second round, and that will really help them out when LeBron leaves the court, and they've really struggled to score with LeBron off the court. If Rondo gets back on, that's going to – I mean, there are some defensive implications, but that's going to help them score, and I think he'll be there and really play a big role. So I like the Lakers and 7 over the Bucks, but I agree with you that Western Conference Finals, if it's Lakers-Clippers, is effectively the championship.
So Johnny K likes the Lakers. I like the Clippers. This is Steve Callis speaking of sports. Along with Johnny Callis, always a pleasure. We'll see you the next time.